You know Michael Mann, you know how obsessive he is. Getting ready to leave in a week to go on this research trip to this very dangerous place. And then I get a call from my agent saying, you know what, there's a thing from the U.S. consulate saying you Americans shouldn't travel there. Oh, there's a warning that they're killing and kidnapping Americans. You shouldn't go. So we confront Michael about that. And he's like, well, we'll get some security guards. What guys are you going to hire? So there's disease, there's infection, there's malaria, there's like kidnapping, and there's assassination. Go on a research trip for a movie.
Hey guys, welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. I'm your host, Econ Song, and this is
Rian Chi Kelly.
What's up,
Hello.
buddy? Hello. So this is another special installment. We have Patrick Massett. We weren't joking around. If you didn't hear the episode a couple weeks ago, he talked about how he scored early with adapting Lara Croft Tomb Raider and just had, Friday Night Lights, The Blacklist. You can see all of his credits. But this episode, we were very excited to get a deeper dive into both of those shows and also more about his writing process. We talk a little bit about mindset,
Routine, his approach to life, his kind of philosophy on how he lives, and a big change that happened to him sort of 9 years ago.
Yeah, we talk about sobriety.
Yeah, we talk about sobriety. We get into the movie Gold, which is a great story, and it's a really great episode. We also recorded this over 2 parts. I got a haircut in between.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. If you're watching on video, Rian's hair did not magically change.
Yeah.
That was not AI. Rian just got a haircut.
We didn't stop for that reason. We didn't stop just so I could get a haircut.
We were like, hey, we got to stop this recording. Rian needs a haircut.
Yeah, guys.
Anyway, this is a great episode. Hope you enjoy it. Follow us wherever you find your podcast at Actors Guide Podcast. We're on all social media. Please enjoy this episode with Patrick Massett. So let's go back to, can we kind of talk about how Friday Night Lights all came to be? Besides the fact that it's a beloved hit, if you look at the actors on this show, Kyle Chandler, Connie Britton, Taylor Kitsch. Also, a lot of people might not know that was Jesse Plemons. I believe he was in high school or very young. These actors were incredible. Can you kind of talk about how just that project came to fruition?
Absolutely. Well, Pete Berg had, his I think his cousin or Buzz Bissinger wrote the book Friday Night Lights, and it was
Great
about
book.
Permian, Texas football, and it was seminal and it was amazing. And then Pete goes out and makes the movie, which I would consider, even though I worked on the TV show, still one of the great sports movies because it goes so deep into character, so deep into the acting is so great, and it's so much about, it's not about the game. It's really about what it means to be a young man growing up with expectations hanging on you so hard. And it was really, really beautifully executed. And I think the big question when the TV, I'll just give you, like, from my part, my business partner ran into, Jason Katims at a coffee shop and said that, my partner played football in high school in Nebraska. And Jason's like, okay, great. And so we read that they sent us the script and the outlines that Berg had put together, and we read them and said, this is fucking great. And we got hired. Next thing you know, it was the first TV show we had ever been on. We had done movies and we'd gotten a couple of films produced, and we had sold some pilots and stuff. We'd been in the TV mix, but we had never been on a staff before. So the thing that we wanted to do was, how do we continue what Pete Berg created? How do we get the acting to be similar? How do we get the style to be similar? How do we tell the story the same way? Because we want it to be a continuation. We don't want it to be like, that was one thing, this is something else. Now,
a continuation of the film?
A continuation of the film, stylistically and story-wise, in some way, get it to tonally match. Now, a lot of people, the reason I say it is a lot of people wouldn't do that. There's a connectivity to it. Now we met all the actors. The writing staff is assembled, and it's this amazing staff. Jason Kidd, Bridget Carpenter, Liz Heldens, Carrie Aaron, Dave Hudgens. It's just incredible group of people. My partner John Zinman, and they bring the actors in one by one to meet. We meet them, and it's really incredible because we didn't know any of them. We hadn't seen any of them really do anything. They were just.
And they had all been cast already. Like, you didn't have any say in the casting process.
Because Pete had shot the pilot, so the pilot was made, and now it's like it really fit well with the movie. And then now they bring on. Now the show's picked up. They bring everybody on, And we were all kind of amazed at how wonderful and charming, and the casting was beautiful. These guys were great, and everybody was so excited. They were just going to, and Connie and Kyle were going to drive in his Mustang to Texas together, and they were going to hang out. And it was just really just camaraderie. And the goal was to like get these guys to really feel comfortable. And I think what we talked about as a team and what Jeff did really well and Jason is to set the style of like not having to put a lot of restrictions on them. They didn't have to think about a lot to just get the scene done. I think we talked about that last week where there were no marks really. It was 3 cameras. It was all 16. It was really fast and just put them up. And we just saw them all grow and grow and grow really, really quickly from this style. And also because of that style, we could get a lot of footage. And we got tons of footage. So it was easier to kind of cut them together at the beginning. And then, the dirt on it though is like after the first season, obviously we're facing, termination, and then a strike is looming and the strike happens. And it's just like, we're going through like 3 regime changes at NBC over the course of the time we're there.
I was actually wondering, so because that went over 5 seasons.
Yeah, I think 80
and so
episodes.
I didn't realize it was always, even first season, it was up for possible cancellation because it was kind of always on the bubble.
Always.
Can you? I was actually going to ask about the improv. At what point through the 5 seasons did that kind of improvisation? Like, in all honesty, I thought the acting and the writing was so kind of seamless. I had a feeling that there was improvisation going on, but I wasn't able to pinpoint it. So in the beginning, it was a little more to the script, and then as time went on, they were a little looser with the words.
I think it was like that exactly. Like they were they were on script, and then as they realized the looseness of the set and the shooting style, they were just sort of pop things out. More improvising would happen, and then it got to be the point where maybe they were improvising too much, and there had to be a conversation with everybody from the network out on the set. Hey, we got to pull it back a little bit. There was like some of that. And then eventually I think everybody got tired of having to think about improvising and just decided to go back to the scripts. And I think Kyle was great because he was like, I can do that with a look. And we're like, great. Anytime you can do something with less dialogue, we're happy to hear that. But all the actors, I think ultimately they all really loved each other. We all really kind of got along. It's the same with the writing room and, everybody at the studio network. There was just kind of a crazy like love fest. There was no assholes or super egos or, Jesse, not even Jesse Plemons. He was like great.
He's a super actor. So you think that came from the top down to have that feeling of?
I think it has to, especially with all the young talent that was on the show. That Pete and Jeff had to be really open to letting that happen. And then again, when it got a little out of control, it had to be pulled back. And then eventually there was this fatigue about it. And so, it was really cool though, but nobody ever felt like whatever they were doing was wrong. It was just like, okay, we're just going to keep, we just keep guiding ourselves to like the right thing. And that was really what was so cool about it, because it was just it was just a really bitch and creative experience. For
was it common at the time to have 3 cameras running? Because I worked on a show last year that had 3 cameras running, and it is so freeing as an actor because you don't have to worry about anything. That you're being, everything's being captured, everything's being picked up, so you don't have to worry about I've got to get it in this because this is the wide, this is the close up. It's a great way of working. I find.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, though, what show was that?
The Rainmaker.
Oh, awesome. And is that on now?
No, it comes out in August.
Wow. Right. It's coming up. That's
right.
Awesome.
Well, I got to get my pen out and start writing my review. Yeah. That was, and to answer your question, Ryan, no, it was not common at the time. Yeah. This sort of like moving camera, punch in, pull back, rotate, kind of documentary style thing. I mean, that had been done, but Pete really like was nailing it, especially in the movie. And then he did it again in the pilot. And that style was generated from, I think it was an economic choice, really. It wasn't like we wanted to do this. This is like a less expensive way to shoot. It's faster. And it just ended up being an amazing creative tool in terms of creating a style. So I think a lot of people followed it after, but I think there was a few guys doing it, but one of them was definitely Pete.
Looking back on it, were you surprised at how much of a cult favorite that show became?
That's a great question. And here's what the actors did that I think gave me a sense that this was going to have some legs. That and the fact that we started getting some, we were getting great reviews, but it was like I would get, I'd read things online at the time about what people were experiencing with the show, and people were saying things like, I cried 3 times, or it was so emotional, it really got to me, or I can totally relate. So when I started hearing that, I was like, that is the pinnacle of storytelling. That's really that's the gold, that's the pot of gold, that you search for to try to get people to be that engaged. And even though we weren't getting the numbers, I think a lot of the problems, Econ, was that I think people thought it was a football show, and we very
Yeah.
quickly said it's not a football show. It's really a story about high school. It's a high school drama. It's a relationship show, and football just happens to be the backdrop. And as soon as I think people realized that they weren't going to go, because one of the things that we would say in the room was like, people don't care about football. If they want to watch football, they can watch it on Saturday or Sunday or whenever the fucking real guys are playing. What we had to do was make sure that there was a story for each character that was going to be in the game, so the stakes of that experience that was happening in the show would play out in the theater of football. So if Saracen was having trouble with his grandma, and grandma was at the game, what did Saracen have to do to help grandma understand whatever it was that they were going through as a grandparent and a grandson? So that's something we had no reason to tell a football story unless there was a personal story.
The thing that struck me about the book even was the kind of, it was very poignant, because that idea of like being a hero in high school and then what you do afterwards, that idea to me was really, that's what I took away from it as well, because like I didn't go in with any knowledge of high school football.
Yeah.
I just went in to like kind of blank,
Yeah.
and I remember coming away with that feeling of like,
Yeah.
the potential, and then the aftermath and everything else. It's a beautiful story, but
It's
to take it
heartbreaking.
then,
It's really heartbreaking, if you think about it. It's really like these boys are going to war. It's for the identity of the town. And when the team wins, the town wins. When the boys suffer, the town suffers. It's But then that time ends, and now who are you? My identity is gone. I no longer belong to this. And you
yeah,
see, you'd go to a high school game and you'd be watching, and you'd see the guys that were the seniors 2 years ago, kind of in the background drinking beer and watching the game, and just like their
yeah,
glory days are over.
yeah,
And
yeah.
really, there's something really sad about that. But also, and like you said, Buzz really did a great job of capturing the emotionality and experience of that.
Speaking of relatability, it's so funny because as someone from Philly and South Jersey, I am so not Texas. Like nothing about like I enjoy it. I have friends from Texas, but that experience is so not me. I'm an Eagles fan. Go Birds. So, besides all of that, I couldn't help but get wrapped up in the relationships. That's storytelling, and that's the power of the show. Another thing about the whole, people thought it was a football show. That's what people are saying about The Bear right now. It's like you might think it's about food, you might think it's about working in a restaurant, but it's about the relationships and about humans. And I think that's part of the power of what's going on with that show too. So
I think it
um,
has to be, and I think that's quintessential. And it's amazing, like how often people miss that. I have to tell you, you're an
yeah,
Eagles fan,
yeah,
Econ.
yeah.
You're Eagles, okay. So you want to hear a Friday Night Lights story?
I
Yeah.
can't
Okay.
wait.
So when Jason and I went down to start researching high school football, we needed to find a high school in Texas that we could um, that we could, call and say, we need to talk, can you tell us a little bit about this, or kind of plays you call, or the formations, or, what's it like in the training room? And so we went down, and there's this quarterback, and he's tall, and he's got this long blonde hair, and he's like, the coach is like, the coach didn't give two fucks. He didn't care about the show. It was, Austin Westlake. They had a stadium, like it was 20,000 people. I mean, this was like, it was fucking crazy. The stadium was like a college stadium. It was high
Yeah.
school, Texas
Mhm.
football. So it was like really what we were doing here. And the guy, this quarterback, he shows us around, and we call him, we're connecting with him. And he's always available he's just great. He's a great kid. And he's really helping us out, and he helps us out a lot. And then he gets a scholarship his senior year, goes to the University of Arizona, plays there, ends up playing for the Eagles and winning a Super Bowl because that guy was Nick Foles.
No, my God. By the way, I knew Nick Foles lived in Austin now currently. Wow. When you said Arizona, I was thinking of a different Eagles player, but that's not a shock. He's the greatest guy ever.
Isn't that amazing? I just
And I
love it.
heard he was the nicest guy.
I mean, his story is almost like a Friday Night Lights story.
Once you get a statue in Philly, yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
just like what a fucking crazy career.
By the way, Patrick, that Super Bowl that Nick Foles played in Minnesota, I was there. I went
Wow!
to the game.
Wow!
Yeah. We don't need to get into too much of this, but there you go. I'm a.
That's
By the
just
way,
this is good real life
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but talk about.
Anyway, I love hearing that story. I'm so glad you shared that. So can we kind of get into a little more of the nuts and bolts? My question is because we have a lot of writers and actors kind of listening and everything. When I see all the IMDb credits that say consulting producer, co-executive producer, I know that on Friday Night Lights you have a handful of different credits for certain time periods. Can you kind of explain that a little bit of
Sure.
what those
I think when
roles
we
mean?
started, we may have been consulting, which basically just consulting means that you're part time. You don't have to be there 7 days a week. You don't have to be there 4 or 5 days a week if you want to. It was kind of a budgetary thing. We had never been on a show before, and then we went from there to I think producer, a co-producer, which is just like the natural evolution, because again, we were just starting our writing career. Then eventually we become executive or co-executive producers. But that's just sort of like every year you get, if you start out, you usually start off as like a associate, then you become a co, then you become a producer, then you become an executive or co-executive, then an executive, and that's like if you're on a show. Every year you should get a bump, or every 2 seasons or so you should get a bump up in credit. It just basically means you have a nicer credit and a little bit more money.
Are you always in the writing room if you're
I
showing up
was,
as a
I was
consulting
both.
producer?
I was in the writing room, and I was also on set a lot, and then I was also in post. So I did a
Does
lot.
that vary from show to show, the involvement on set of the writers, or are they always kind of thereabouts?
It's like the really good showrunners put their writers on set, and some of the really good ones don't, but all the ones that I've worked with did. Sean Ryan, just all those guys. Sean sent us to Chicago and fucking Hawaii. We're just great.
You talked a little bit about that last time, but you hit Lara Croft Tomb Raider fairly early. You sold some scripts. Now you transitioned to TV. Can you talk about how you were able to learn the politics?
Well, I think in film is still the same. It's pretty easy. It's like it's a director's medium. Film is really, you're kind of like, the director is like, he's got to make it. He's got to sort of be in charge. He's got to have his hands on all the levers, and he'll let you know how much he wants to know from you. Some directors would want you on set, others wouldn't. It's just like some directors don't want the writer around because they want to do stuff and not have some guy giving them shit. Regardless of, and some directors want you around and say, "Hey, we want to change this line. What do you think of this? Or can you think of something?" So it's really on a kind of a set to set basis, movie to movie basis in terms of that. The best directors, I feel, try to keep a writer pretty close to them. If it's not the writer that wrote the script, at least a writer, because writing is not directing. And I think a lot of directors think they can just write something because they're directors, and that's just not the case. Writing is really hard, and it's an art in itself, and it's hard. Now in TV, it's different. TV is really a writer's medium in terms of production because the showrunner has to run everything, not the directors, because the showrunners are the ones that are sticking around for every single episode. They know what's going on every episode, with the story, with costume, with the sets, where we're going to be, the locations, the budgets, everything filters through that central sort of point of the showrunner or the showrunning team. So they're more in charge. And then the hierarchy in a writing room is really a good writing room. There'll be no hierarchy. There'll be like, everybody gets to share, everybody gets to talk. There should be a safe environment to put out good ideas, and bad ideas shouldn't be criticized.
Do you have a preference between the writer's room and a TV show, or on a movie where it's different, where it's kind of you're writing the movie and you're getting notes and whatever and you're adjusting? Do you prefer that collaborative environment in that way, or do you prefer the more, not more solo, but like,
Man,
more isolated?
that's a really good question, Ryan. And I got to say that again, it's a project to project basis.
Yeah.
When I was, there's just been a lot of great shows that I was on that I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was just such a good process and such a good group of people. Like, like like the ones we've talked about, also like Last Light, Chicago Code. Those were great experiences. And I also had the same thing on movie sets where it's been great. So it's really a project to project basis.
Ekan, do you have a preference?
Rian, I think in general, it's kind of like what Patrick was saying. The environment is so different. So I think it just kind of depends on. It's kind of nice to have variety between the two. Personally, for me.
Ekan, have you had experiences with have there been some really good experiences with directors in some of the episodics that you've done, where you feel like you were be able to have a dialogue with them? Because some directors in the rotation are really good with actors, and other ones just don't want anything to do with the actors. Just set the shot. Let me get the shot. The actor, and don't really communicate a whole lot with talent. I mean, what's
You're
been your
100%.
and do you prefer one where do you prefer to be left alone and I got this, or do you want direction?
For the most part, my TV experiences, I never got tons of direction, but it was nice to have an open dialogue with the director where the director sets the tone. Hey, let's kind of, so this is kind of like what's happening. They don't need to overtalk and they don't need to micromanage every take, but it's an open dialogue. I'm here, I'm watching, I'm paying attention to you. Where many TV experiences never introduce themselves, not one word of direction. And sometimes where I was, this is a longer story, but I'm a paramedic. Here's the gurney. Here's all your medical tape. You're wearing plastic gloves, and I'm trying to work through all this and time the scene. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to be polite and kind of, taking up ownership of, okay, I'm doing this. And if I question, well, this is what's happening, or your lead actor is fumbling her monologue, um, I'm so low on the totem pole where, the director thinks it's a power trip. He'll just look
Yeah.
at me. He's like, are you really doing this right now? And I'm like,
Wow.
I am
Wow.
not doing anything. Let me just keep going on my way and let me just do this. I do my job in the least amount of takes. I'm not going to need direction, but it would be nice to know that, hey, we're all working on the same team. So I've seen both sides, and I prefer someone who's nicer, personally, for me.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, that's how we get. It's. I think the reality for that is like it's so stressful. There's
Yeah.
so much that you want to pack in. I think directors want to pack in so much into their episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so little time, and that there's a budget constraint. And I'm almost sure almost all directors would love to have a 10-day rehearsal period, and just really work through all their stuff. But they have to keep moving, man.
TV to me often feels like just jumping into a fast moving river that's already flowing, and you just have to try and keep above water. Like you just have to try and keep up and not fuck it up and just kind of stay, stay abreast of the situation. Whereas to your point, Ekan, like a movie, depending on the scale of the movie, on a bigger movie, it's slightly different. But like in like an indie movie, there's a real camaraderie about, and I love TV, I really do. I love the process of it. But a smaller, like an indie movie, there's a camaraderie about, like, we're all trying to get this thing made. We don't have a ton of money, you know what I mean? We've just enough money to get this thing made if nothing goes wrong. And there's a real kind of a togetherness in that. Whereas TV, the directors are dropping in and out, the actors are dropping in and out. You have your series regulars who maybe are there from start to finish, from season one to the last season. Maybe not. That changes over time too. But I think at a certain level, you're dropping in and just trying to get to grips with everything and do your job and hop out again. And I think
Completely agree.
That's a really great description. You want to be a part of the flow if you can, and understanding, like, this is you're a piece of this thing. you think about like show running, man, in terms of like the pace and what's going on, you're always going to have a room where you're developing a script. You're always going to have a script that's going through the vetting process, getting notes and getting dialed in to get ready and getting, you're always going to have another script. These are all different projects, all happening at the same time. You're going to have another one that's in prep. You're going to have another one that's shooting. You may have another one that's doing some reshoots with B Camp with the second team.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be in post and delivering. So you've almost got like 5 projects going on at the same time. You know,
that's a very good point. Yeah.
now you do some rewriting. You know, so it's really luckily I just felt like I had this nice flow. Up the totem pole on Friday Night Lights. Got along with it. We all got along really well, and I was really lucky to be able to be asked to go work in post. Where I got a chance to.
Oh, you were asked to go. So that's not assumed, but you were invited to the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was lucky to be asked to do a lot of besides just writing scripts with John, to also make sure that all the football stuff in every script was accurate. If it was a practice or a conversation about recruiting or whatever it was, I had to, Jason always just said, take a look at this and make sure it feels right. And I always find I got a chance to really get my hands on almost every script. Because every script if there wasn't a game or a practice, there was always something about football going on. So
can I just add? High school football got you into acting class, and it also got you into Friday Night Lights. You being a football player,
and then I was blessed to be able to coach my son in football when he was a kid, and he became a quarterback, and he had a big run at state, himself, and so it's just football's been very good to Patrick,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I love
so
that.
Can you talk about your experience when you were in the editing process? What'd you learn as a writer? Did it change your writing?
Well, first of all, these editors were incredible because they got so much footage. The style that we were talking about, guys, that generates. You have 3 cameras rolling all the time. It just generates a lot of raw footage that the editors had to go through. So the assistant editors would have to weed through all that stuff and just look at everything that didn't have a flaw in it, and then they had to, weed that down to how can we cut this together? Oh, they're geniuses. And what I would do is I would come in and help put together the football game, and I would write and I would voice, Dillon Panthers tonight, folks. Let's see how these guys can do. We've got
no way.
But Saracen's not having a great night, but we'll see how this plays out, folks. Stick around. I mean, so I gotta help work on cutting, not the body of the episodes, but the football games, which to me was the best part. It was the funnest part. And then we'd all add the dialogue and stuff and write all that extra dialogue in that you needed. We need something here. It's 4th and 1. Can you say something here? They got to get a first down to win. And then in season 4, the guy that was doing the voice, they couldn't get his deal done, so they asked me to do it. So I ended up being the voice of the announcer on Friday Night Lights for the last 2 years.
So you got an acting check.
I got an acting career. Yeah, acting.
I will say, if anyone watches the football sequences looked real, gritty, hard hitting. I mean, those scenes were great. The fact that those were what you were watching and editing, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, again, great sports choreographer, and also we would take the time to rehearse those games. We had great, acting doubles that would come in, real Texas, University of Texas football players that would come in and stand in for, Riggins or for Saracen or whoever it was. So, everybody just wanted to be a part of that. And I think that comes across, all the enthusiasm and excitement that people had to make these games feel gritty and tough. Like you described it perfectly. That's what we were going for.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I had a quick question just about the process of that. So there's a book of this show, and then there's a movie, and then there's this pilot. And then I suppose my question is, so you get this kind of starting point, and then you have to write the stories of all these different characters going and intertwining, going all these different directions. Where do you start with that? It's such a fascinating process to me. the daunting task of like, how do we create a world here, and how do you choose what characters to kind of create and bring in, and where do they go? Like I'm so in awe of that process. I can't like get enough of hearing about it.
Is that we would set up the season. Like we would put up on the board like game 1, game 3, game 1, game 2, and we would say, okay, we can afford, this is 13 episodes this year. We can afford 7 games. How are we going to use them? Well, obviously we want state, and we want to start off with a good game in the beginning, and we distribute. So this would be like this sort of arc of the games. Now, what do we want to have happen in each game? We had to go back and like, and again, a credit to Jason and this amazing room. We wanted to make sure that every character had a story. What is the story? And we would think, what's the story of the season for Coach? What's the story of the season for Landry? Like in Landry's story, we'll say, well, he's going to get a girlfriend, and he's going to become a little bit more part of the thing. And by the end of the season, he's going to, fall in love or whatever it is. And so we try to figure out, I can't remember the arcs now, but we would try to figure out like where do we want to go? Where do you want, like, well, in this story, Rian is going to go from being like a guy who's really been busting his ass. He's close on the edge to having this amazing career. He keeps getting these great little spots, and then finally, bam, he nails the big one, and he just shits the bed, and the critics hate him.
Oh man,
I was loving that story up until the finale.
So that's basically what we would do, Rian, and then we would do the nitty gritty work. Every episode had to be broken down into a really deep kind of outline, 20-page outline that we'd all sort of look at and see like this is the story, and then it would be from that it would be, that outline would be handed to a writer, and that writer would go write the and also sometimes people would come in with ideas like, hey, let's do an episode about where this happens, or I saw this thing on TV where this happened to this player. Could we do a story on that? And so that would be another inspiration that we would take.
This is great. I want to get more. I want to get more into the writing process. But before we leave Friday Night Lights, can you talk a little bit about Jesse Plemons, just as a young actor? I'll never forget when I was watching Jesse Plemons. He crushed every line. Everything that came out of his mouth was kind of pitch perfect, I thought. Are you surprised at how much success he's gotten as the years go on? That
I would lie to you if I said that I wasn't surprised. Only because he seemed to be in the shadow of Riggin, of Taylor, and who went on to do like this last thing Taylor did the one thing I saw that Taylor did since Friday Night Lights with the Koresh thing, the Texas Waco thing, amazing performances. But I don't think anybody really saw it. I mean, on set and around him, he was funny, he was witty, he was charming, he was available, and who he is, that sort of drive back, lay back, sharp, biting sense of humor. He just nailed that in the show. He was loved by all of us. We wanted to write for him as a person and as an actor.
Just one more question I had on the process of the creating of shows, and it was actually sort of, when you mentioned you wanted to write for Jesse Plemons as an actor, peripheral characters and co-stars and people, are they, when you're writing those roles, are they just to kind of fill a purpose in the script for that episode? And then what makes you want to write them in more? Is it just necessity, or is it something in that actor's performance, or is there some reason that actors then their part can grow and they're kind of, we see more of them and they grow as characters? Is there?
Yeah. Great question. I think as a showrunner, you want all of your characters to pop, even if they're these small peripheral guys. You want them to pop, and if you see a little spark in them, that's where you want to write for. Like Jesse had this spark. We wanted to figure out how to get him more involved, and then I think we got him we wanted him to get closer into the team. But to answer your question, yeah, if you see like something in his performance, and also they're a good person, that they can handle it, you want to write for them. You want to say like, well, let's get him more story, let's get him more involved, and it doesn't have to happen in like one episode. It can happen over the course of the season or something, but. That's what you really want. You want, we were so lucky that we wanted to write to everybody. They're all our characters. We just love them. How can we get them all a story? And like, so what we did, another part of the process, Rian, was like, okay, let's tell a story about where Taylor goes to visit Street at the hospital, but let's do it in 3 beats. Like, what are the 3? So that's how you sort of that's how you manage it. You
I
get it down to
see.
like, okay, well, what's the first beat? So that's it. Then you got the 3 beats. Then you put that on the board. And you got the 3 beats of the Taylor Kitsch going to visit Jason Street story, or Riggins rather, and that's sort of like that just sits there. Then you got, now let's fill it in with the next one. So you start to just build each of these scenes, and like, we got to do a big 5 beats with Lila and whoever, just so that's another piece of like how you just manage all that story.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about current TV shows trying to trim cast to cut costs, fewer actors, and this is one of those things where I feel like is being sacrificed sometimes, where studios are trying to save money and plugging in smaller characters without giving them a full life or at least a story there.
It's just so small thinking. Creatively, you want to get what you need to tell the story. Now, if you don't need a character, if you don't need them to tell the story, then maybe they're not important. But if that character could become Jesse, Jesse Plemons at the end of the season, you got to give things time. You got to let things grow. It's like, God, everybody just wants it all to be perfect. It's just like, that's just not how the business works. It's not how this process works.
I remember you said last time someone sent you Robert McKee's story tapes. How did you evolve your storytelling skills?
Well, I think it's like I learned like that night at the Pearl Bar where I ran into another young writer who was trying to make it. He said, "I got these tapes, man." Like,
I know, like it was drugs.
Could afford to buy the book, so somebody had bootlegged a copy of his lecture, and so I ended up hooking up with this guy and literally putting in the cassettes, and I listened to him fucking over and over, and he was calling me, "I need my tapes back, man." But in those tapes, in that book that Robert McKee wrote, which is called Story, which I still think is the best book,
Okay.
not because it's of its depth, but because it gives you a really basic, grounded, fundamental understanding of how to tell a story in acts. How to tell the inciting incident, the first act, the pinch, the reversal, all these basic things that once you learn them and you really put them, it's sort of like music. You can't really play jazz until you learn all the fundamentals of music. And I think
Right.
Robert gives you all these basics, all these fundamentals, and I just remember them. I've never forgotten them. Whatever I'm writing, I'm gonna either know I'm playing by the rules, or I'm choosing to break the rules, but at
That's
least
awesome.
I know them. So I think that was something. I mean, in terms of like, have I been luckier than the other guys? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their fate. I don't know if this has anything to do with whether or not I keep working or not. I just know for me, I can never get away from the fundamentals. And maybe the same thing in golf. I know Tom Brady had always had 5 or 6 quarterback coaches around him. Now, what are those guys teaching him? They're reminding him of the fundamentals of footwork, stance, and a position, and of hip turn. And it's the same thing with writing, I think. I think all really, really good writers, understand fundamentally, like, we need a certain thing to create an experience. Take an audience in one direction and then turn it on them. They're going to have an emotional experience. Get people
That's
to
a
invest
great advertisement.
by them being honest and being relatable, and then take something away. It's just like, you don't want to think of those as tricks. You just want to think of those as like little guideposts.
You said you got to know the rules to know when to break them. Does anything come to mind when times that you've broken the rules when you were writing something or telling a story?
You know,
Or
yeah, I think when we were doing Gold, we were sort of
that's right. We got to talk about gold. Mm-hmm.
when John and I were writing that, we were blending genres, and we were playing with cinematic styles and structure. So yeah, we were breaking rules. We weren't playing like by the exact way you're supposed to do it. And so you could have said, is this 5 acts or is it 7? I mean, we had all these, like, the way you would, nerd out and try to like break it down, genre styles that don't necessarily work within certain act styles. So yeah, but we knew what we were doing, and we were like, well, this is the way, because I think when you write more acts, generally a movie's in 3. That's the basic Robert McKee way. And then he talks about 5, but you can also do 7. But the reason that we like the more act breaks is because you just got more emotional fucking churn. The end of the first act is really always a big turn for the character. And the more we just felt like the more you had in those, the more emotional it was going to be.
And for people
And
that don't know, Matthew McConaughey is the big star,
Right. Kagan
2016.
directed it. Yeah.
it also helped me get a job one time, because remember I had a callback with Bryce Dallas Howard, who was directing the thing that I ended up booking. But in the callback in the room, you had told me that she was in Gold, and I brought it up in the room and said, "Oh, Patrick Massett says hi," and she's like, "Oh, Patrick, tell him I love the script," and blah blah blah.
Nice. There you
Yeah.
go.
Man, what a
Passing it forward.
Wonderful!
awesome lady. Yeah. Wow.
What a dream to work with as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I need to say this, Patrick, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I want to ask, what does a writing day look for you? Routines, habits, any tips that you can give to up and coming screenwriters?
sure. And I would also just like to say, in regards to me, giving you my time, it's like, honestly, you guys are cool. And nobody ever asks the writers what they think ever. The last writer, to be able to greenlit a movie was named Patty Chayefsky. And, I think maybe William Goldman. So it's been a while since we've had any real, impact on. So you guys are, the fact that someone wants to talk to me, I'm like, sure, I'll talk to anybody, No, because you guys are so cool.
I love this stuff. I love learning about this.
Yeah, actually, like I find, honestly, in the business, writers are the most knowledgeable, really, about story. I mean, directors are great storytellers, and producers everyone's great, but writers, man, it's like you're in there, you're in the trenches, you're where the rubber meets the road. It's every day you're trying to, you know, tell a story and make sense of things and I respect writers so much. I don't care if you're just a kid starting out writing B action movies or you're like, if you won 7 Academy Awards, it's hard and it's you have to love it, extremely gratifying. But you have to really, you really have to love it. It's like anything else. If you love it, you're never going to work a day in your life. And I think I've been blessed to have that experience.
If you talk to actors, they're always looking for great material. And if you
Yeah.
talk to a lot of directors, a lot of times that they get their first start is because they have to write their own material
Why?
looking for something to direct.
Econ, because it's so hard to thread the needle in terms of what's a story that's relevant, important, entertaining, whatever, and also how to execute it. My first job, and I'll get into my routine in a second. My first job in this business, besides acting, was covering scripts. I would get $50 to $75 a script, and there's this little company called Live Entertainment that was around, and they were getting movies made, and there's this guy that he's a producer, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and he goes, yeah. So I was paying the bills, man, by going and getting 3 or 4 or 5. I'd drive over, get a box, like a banker's box full of scripts, and I'd try to go through 3 or 4 at a time. And my wife was working with me. She was helping me. We would read and write and get these things cranked out. We make $200 or $300 a day, just. But what I learned about storytelling from that experience was that almost every script I read was a really good idea. Just like, wow, that's a really cool idea. But the execution was most of the time it was awful. That's what I realized about if I was really going to pursue writing, that I had to learn how to really execute at a really high level in order to even get noticed. You're not fighting with the ideas out there. There's a lot of great ideas, plenty of great ideas. How do you execute it? In fact, when John and I were doing Gold, we were pitching it around town. We had done Tomb Raider and Friday Night Lights and a few other things, but then everyone was like, well, this is a really complicated, deep kind of, multi, genre kind of thing. This is what they said. It's really execution oriented. We'll make this if you can execute this. So that was the prompt for us to go and write a spec, which, ended up Blacklist, the biggest sale at Berlin. I think it was $15 million. And just at the foreign sale pre-sale at Berlin was it was like just there was a lot of great things around that. And then Matthew McConaughey comes onto the scene, and he's just absolutely has this incredible vision of the character, which I'll get into in a second. Let me go back to that routine question, if that's okay. This is a lot of it has to do with my getting ready to write. I have to do a lot of personal stuff first. The first thing I do when I wake up is I try to say a prayer. I'm non-religious. I don't have a specific God that is in any manual or text or holy book. It's just a God of my choosing, and I do reading, and then I do a sauna. Which is a whole nother story. I take a 30 to 40 minute sauna after prayer and meditation, and then I do Tai Chi, and then I do CrossFit, and that's my routine every day. That sounds like it could be 6 hours. It's usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Because my CrossFit's about 15 minutes. I do a really fast, high energy, get the heart rate up. I'm an old man. You got to get your heart rate up thing. And then I sit down and I begin to look at the day's writing, and I try not to think about it until that moment. And the trick for me is if I want to write, great. If I don't feel like I want to write, no matter. If I can just sit down and tell myself, Econ, I'm just going to write for 5 minutes. The script, the material, whatever I'm working on will give me energy. And the next thing I know, 2 or 3 hours go by. Because as soon as I start reading, oh, I can make that better. Oh, I can make that. Oh, that's a little different. Oh, that could be funny. Next thing I know, I'm just totally into it. But so I learned from a very young age, if I just start, I'll be able to keep going. But you got to start, And I think that's for a lot of young writers that I've worked with. And I work with a lot of young writers, and I'm happy to do it. It's them just being so freaked out about starting. Like they're so afraid of the result. They're so far into the future. They're not giving themselves a chance to really discover and to be artists because they're afraid of the results. Fear is the biggest enemy in my opinion, of a writer, and it certainly can be for me. So that's my day, I still to this day I love writing. If I'm not on a job, which is not very, I've never really not had a job since I started professionally until COVID. I'm writing something, man. I got to write. I got to be involved. It's either developing a pitch or writing a script or giving notes to someone, or I just love it so much. I'm very lucky to love what I do. So that's
I love that because I'm actually very much, I'm finding these little tricks and habits, and I often write as well, and I'm also creating my own project. And I always thought personally for myself, I needed to get into the body and the mind to do this creative work. And I like to do it first thing in the morning. I like to do it after a workout. I like to have a cup of coffee if I need a little jump start and I want to feel in a great mood to create because I know how hard it is. And
Mhm.
so you're kind of reaffirming that.
Good. It's proven that routine is really essential in a lot of, it's just to some people. To me, it's really essential. Now, that whole program that I just described, it took me 9 years to develop that. I mean, I started when I first went through this sort of life change where I felt I was going to stop drinking and doing other things like that, and really started to look more spiritually, look more inward into my life. Basically, I was just doing the prayer and meditation part. And then slowly I just felt like I needed more and I became like a vegan. I just thought, well, let's just try help see how your body feels if you don't eat other animals, just for myself because I don't judge it. I mean, I love meat. But I decided to try that. And then that worked. And then I thought, well, maybe I should lose some weight. I lost 60 pounds, through changing my diet and doing CrossFit. But then I felt like I needed something else because meditation and just sitting was so, sometimes it was great, but I had heard of this thing called a moving meditation, which was Tai Chi, and I got into that. And so this whole thing developed. So I would say to anybody who's thinking about starting a routine, start small. Just start with like one thing that you feel like you can manage every day that you feel is going to be helpful in doing what you want to do, if it's writing or acting or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I love that. And just a little question on that. Because you were already successful in working for a long time, and then you only found this routine for the past 9 years. Was there anything that kind of pushed you towards searching for something else and searching for something more deeper? What caused that shift? Because that's a pretty big shift that kind of
Yeah.
eventually happened.
Well, it was a really big life thing, Econ. It was like, and Rian knows this pretty well, but it was more like, it was like I just felt empty. I just felt like I had had all the success that I had. I mean, I'm not like 5 Academy Award guy. I'm just a really guy who got really lucky and got on some great shows, worked with some great people, got a few movies made. Worked really hard though. You can't take that away from me, man. I worked fucking hard. But I had all that stuff, and I just kind of felt like empty. There was no sense of like I was looking at life the wrong way. I was looking at, for some reason, I was looking for something that I couldn't reach, and I just kept feeling like it was all meaningless, and that spiraled down into the selfishness and the self-centeredness and pushing people I love away. And so I sort of I hit a bottom, and in that bottom, I had a spiritual awakening, and it got me on this other path that I absolutely am blessed and grateful to be a part of.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Powerful.
And that's the kind of stuff, I mean, that fires me up. And obviously, we've had similar experiences in that, in quitting drinking and establishing a routine. And mine very similarly to yours was a very gradual thing. The prayer, the meditation built up over time. I've involved some other things in it now, and it just that's what sets me up. And if I don't get to do it for whatever reason, it kind of throws my day off a little bit.
From the writing and the acting and the creative side of it, I think I mentioned this before. I had this illusion. I think a lot of guys have this illusion that the drugs and alcohol are really helpful. They really get you open and it's just completely a lie. That my alcoholism was telling me, stick with me, man. I'm going to get you through this, when it was killing me. And my writing, my sense of experience of being a human being, of being a man, being a father, being a husband, being a friend, it all elevated because of changing those things. You don't lose your creative edge because you stop crawling out of garbage bins.
Yeah. And so on this note, as far as relationships, working with other people, so you've always had a longtime collaborator, John Zinman, throughout all these projects. You both have been working together.
Yeah, most of them. The story with John was that I was trying to break in, and I'd written a bunch of stuff, and I'd gone to great lengths to try to get a spec sale, and nothing had worked. And finally, I was writing this one thing that I felt like really had a chance. So I went to John asking for notes. He gave me a round of notes because I had known him from a theater company, and I sold it. I think I talked about that last time. It's like paid the bills. We were down. We were like, my wife and I were like 3 kids and $200,000 in debt and buying on the rent and everything else, and got the sale. But John helped me. So we went out that a couple of nights later to celebrate. We had a really good time and decided to write a spec together. We did. That spec got us a video adaptation called Battle Zone, which we did. We did a great job on, and that links up to the Tomb Raider story, because at that point, Larry Gordon and Lloyd Levin called us in and said, "We loved your script. We're not sure how we're going to make this yet, but we want to know what you guys want to do next." But in terms of the work, he has strong suits. I have strong suits. We argue a lot. We agree a lot. It's like any other long-term relationship. You need some time away. He's done projects on his own. I've done projects on my own, but we mostly collaborate. And every project's different. Honestly, I wish I could say that there was a set pattern that we went by, but sometimes he'll be on point with something if he feels more energized to it. Sometimes we'll do it together. And sometimes I'll be on point and I'll say, this is, it's better. It's kind of like that's the best version, really, because then you don't have you agree that someone's going to be able to make the final decision, because a lot of times it's hard. If you want to do it completely equally and you have to agree on everything together, you're not going to get very far. And we learned that pretty early on, where we'd both go, well, I don't agree. We don't agree. That it's just like, okay, let's just decide that one person's in charge of each project. And the other person, we argue and debate, but finally someone has the final say, or what we call final pass. And so that's how that goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. Actually, I've had a long time writing partner for a while, and I was always curious how writing teams decide if there's a stalemate. How do you decide to make that decision? And
agree before you begin that someone is in charge, and then you have to just accept it. You have to be in this place.
That's brilliant.
You know what? That's fucking a really bad choice, and you're making a big fucking mistake, you idiot. But fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Do you have a favorite, just in light of that? Like, do you have a favorite part of this job? Like, is it sitting down in front of a blank page with an idea? Is it pitching? Is it being on a set? Is it in a writer's room? What's the buzz for you? Like, or is it all just stuff that you enjoy?
No, that's a great question, man. And honestly, the funnest part for me is hearing about an idea or thinking about an idea or reading an article or having a conversation with someone and getting an idea and then just really working it up in my head and writing down the initial thoughts and just it's the beginning, man. It's like when you just have all this fresh energy towards something and you have a vision for it and you're just like, oh man, this is going to be fantastic. And it's before anybody else comes in and says you can't do this or you can't do that, maybe you should try this, which is great. It's the process. It's pre-collaboration that really is by far the most fun part. But it's all fucking
Yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah.
I love that. And can you kind of talk about how, because there's such a long process, especially if it's film, that pre-collaboration is such a small percentage of the entire experience.
Yeah.
And I know that you love writing, but if that's the best part, how do you survive through all the parts that aren't as fun?
I'm always looking for new stuff to do. So even if I've got
Mm.
like right now, I'm doing literally we have 2 pitches out and we have 2 pitches on deck. And I just got a book that I picked up that I love that I want to adapt. So I'm always in that phase, but I'm also in the phase of first draft. I'm also in the phase of rewrite. I'm also in the phase of production, but I'm always feeding myself the new ideas and not feeling like, you can't survive on one thing. When I was like, right when IMDb came out, they had this list on the right side of your name of like all your stuff in development. You can go look at it and they have these lists. And I decided to go to Spielberg's list. I was Steven Spielberg and see what he's done. He's like 40 things in development. I'm like, oh, that's how you do
Yeah,
it. To get one
that's the
thing
key.
made, you have to have 10 thing in the can or 10 thing ready, 10 things that you're working on. So you got to always look. I'm always it's some part of my day is dedicated to that new part.
I think that's true of actors as well. I love that because I think the busier I am and the more involved I am in a class, in auditioning, prep for like whatever it is, the more of it I do, the less precious I get about any one part of it. The more auditions I have, the less attached I am to the outcome of any one audition, and I'm just doing it and I'm in the flow of it. And I think it's possibly something similar. It might be slightly different as a writer, but I love that the idea of you being in all of those things, all of those phases at the same time. That's a really cool way to live.
Things that you think are going to rock just end up dying, and the things that you're just like, what? Next, that's like, let's go. It's just
Yeah,
hard. It's hard to
yeah.
tell. How do you guys as actors in this day and age, where it's so less personal, but maybe more fun in terms of creating your own auditions and that sort of thing? How do you guys deal with rejection?
Um,
You've nailed it. You've done a good job. You like did everything you could possibly do, and they
You
still
know,
say we're going a different direction. Econ.
Patrick, you would appreciate this. Just yesterday, I posted a short uh, of a bit of our first session together, and it was you talking about how rejection doesn't bother you, about you how you did everything in your power, and you had faith that I did everything I could do. And I literally just posted yesterday. I was like, this is such a brilliant little bit that really resonated with me. Um, Experience carries a lot being in class, but I've known this for years, but I didn't realize it until now. Having a life helps out a lot. It's
Yeah,
kind of like what you're
yeah,
saying, where you have other things that you're working on. You're always in that fire. So, there might be something that you might have got rejected for an audition that happened 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember it anymore.
yeah.
So I think having a life and trying to have a fulfilled life, working out, being healthy, all that helps the train keep going.
Having other things to look forward to.
It's like, hey, me and Rian and I, every week we're talking about something that may or may not be really scary in the industry. Like, let's be honest here. We don't know what's going to happen 2 or 5 years from now,
Yeah,
but we're always having something that we're working on and moving towards something. Rejection doesn't bother me as much.
That is survival. What you just described is how you survive in a brutal industry where art is criticized and and rejection is rampant, and necessarily so. A lot of people want these one things, and so it's like it's just part of reality. But that what you just described to me is like how people survive. Because I have a lot of friends that rejection ruins them. It'll ruin them for a week or two or a month, and they wrote this thing and nobody wants to read it, or everyone's, and it's just like a lot of young writers, and I try to impart to them this idea of being the shield of self satisfaction. It's but it's hard. It's really hard. A lot of talented people go to the side because they can't handle that part of our job.
Absolutely, and I think for me, like you can't said, like it's experience as well, and it's experience, not just experience, but learning over time to not conflate your identity as a human being with your job, and putting success in your job as a valuation of who you are. It's also learning to love all the parts of it, like you described, like learning to love the audition. I love auditions now. I love getting tapes to do, because it's like a little puzzle and I get to work on it and let it go. I really enjoy the buzz of that. And then learning from people better than me and being in a class and just learning to love all the different parts of it. And, and sometimes it'll get to me if I've done a lot of auditions and I didn't book any of them. Like I'll feel it, I'm like, oh, but it's temporary because it's it's just part of the process now. And I didn't always feel like this, but having a routine, like you mentioned, is key, because it brings in that positivity. Like it kind of infuses that positivity into my day and into my experience of this job. And then being really grateful for every opportunity to do it. But I've had to, over time, learn to love all the different aspects of it and all the parts of it, and also have a life that has meaning outside of this thing. So
This is a great transition. Patrick, can you talk a little bit about pitching? Because in a way, that's writer's version of auditioning.
Yeah, I just want to add to that last thing real quick. It's that it's like what I'm saying about like that, like just like you did a great job. I did everything I possibly could. Rejection bounces off. That's not always the case. Just so you know, like sometimes rejection just stings, but for me, it's not to get stuck in it. I can experience the grief. I can experience the disappointment, but I know I did a good job. I have a life. I have my family, my friends. I have other things. I got to ride my motorcycle. I got to go play guitar. I got to do whatever I want to do. I have a great life. Let's go enjoy that. So the pitching, yeah, pitching's changed, man. It's really gotten through a real just evolution in itself. It used to be the good old days. You'd work up a pitch. It would be, it's always been about the same length, 20, 30 minutes, maybe. If you wanted to go longer, you could, but you really wanted to just, you couldn't, like a lot of times in pitching, you can't tell the whole story. You got to tell the heart of the story. There's this old funny line, sell the sizzle, not the steak, I think. So what's the really crackling impact part of the story you want to tell? You can't tell it beat for beat. So what can I tell? What are the cool turns, the twists and turns that say this is going to be a really great project, or this is going to be a great movie or a great TV show? And then it's like we used to go into the rooms, and you would go in and there would be, an early meeting would be one or two executives, and then later in the meetings you'd have a whole boardroom full of people, and you'd pitch it out, and it was all verbal, and a lot of times they'd go, "Thank you very much," and other times they'd go, "That's great, let's do that," and be like, "Yeah," everybody like partying. I mean, that's how it went down. And then when COVID came in, people started emerging to like, well, let's pitch on Zoom, and now it's all Zoom. I mean, I went into a Marvel meeting because it was like I had gone like 6 meetings with those guys, and then they said, well, let's just do a sit down, come in and meet everybody. So I went and did that, and then I think I had another one with someone else, like Dick Wolf. I think I did a meeting where we had done like 2 or 3 development meetings and went in and had a sit down with them. But most of these meetings, guys, are now all Zoom, and it's the same thing, except you also have like a visual element you can use now. As you're pitching, there's like images that come and fade in and fade out. Like there's a picture of my main actor. There's our movie star. Rian's going to play the lead here, and And it's like, and then you have, whatever, you've seen decks, they're called decks. So that's, and it's like, it's not as personal, but you can get a lot more done, strangely, if that makes sense.
And so, Patrick, just so I'm aware, you're playing and kind of you're kind of showing this deck on the Zoom. So in a way, you're doing like a PowerPoint presentation.
PowerPoint presentation, and you're being an actor. You sort of have to act it out too. You've got to.
Oh,
Like
wow.
when I first started pitching, I'm like, what is this bullshit? I'm a writer. I don't have to go. I don't want to go act. I'm getting out of
Yeah.
that game. But no, you got to act, man. You've got to be like, you've got to have a performance on. It's not like you're just reading your shit. The old days, you didn't have your script in front of you. You couldn't read something. You had to like pitch it. You had to like sit there and go, okay, so the guy walks into the room and machine guns go off. They're fucking blasting away. So the next thing you know, it's like, and that's how it went. Now it's you read through it, but you got to perform it. You got a script.
I was actually going to say that your acting background actually probably helped you be able to pitch, because a lot of writers are even more shy, more introverted, and aren't used to verbalizing their stories.
That's right. And when
Wow.
so like when I'm working with a couple of young writers on a project right now over at Universal TV, and they're great, but they're young, man, and and it's like you got to coach them up. I have this pair of young female writers that are both these great young ladies that are working on this big international show that I'm helping them with, and I every time they want to run the document by me, I make them pitch it to me on Zoom, and every time they've gotten better. So it's just like anything else. You got to practice it. You got to
It's a
be aware
rehearsal.
that it's part of your job. Like Rena was saying, it's like it's everything is the thing. It's not one thing.
I just saw a video recently, and I just thought it was fitting. Surprisingly, it was actually Owen Wilson. He was talking about auditioning, and he said that sometimes the most talented actors ever just can't audition, and it's a shame. And sometimes, very similarly, the most talented writers ever can't pitch, and they can't get their stories made. So there
Yeah,
you go.
I can totally believe that. I can totally believe that to be true, and I can tell you that John and I are really good at the pitching part. We're really good at creating the right document, really bringing the performance, about being engaged in the Q&A. It's part of the job. If you're going to be a writer, part of the job is learning how to pitch
Absolutely.
on Zoom,
Absolutely.
do the work, get better at it, take an acting class. If you're shy, overcome it, because what he's talking about is true.
And similarly, there are actors I talk to who get resentful at the idea that they have to be business people as well. They have to do all this marketing stuff on the side. But that's the thing that allows you to do the thing that you love. So you got to get good at that too. It's just all part of the
A lot of
package.
actors don't even want to do self tapes, or resent the fact that they have to do self tapes.
Understandable, but that's not the reality. It's understandable. Like, why do I have to do the bullshit? But that's how I thought when I first started writing. I thought, well, I was just going to write specs, and they, no, you got to go pitch this. I'm like, how do I
Yeah.
do that? And then you learn, but you have to accept it. Like Rena's saying, accept it as part of the reality that you're in, and that's the only way you're going to be good at it. If you go in there resentful with a chip on your shoulder or whatever, fucking people are going to know, man. They're gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh, that guy didn't want to be here. And I've been in pitches listening to other people pitch where I was like, that person did not want to be here.
Getting to the final stretch here, do you want to talk about how that story of Gold happened, and how it all came to be? McConaughey
Sure,
stories.
sure. Yeah, Gold was one of my favorite scripts that John and I wrote, and it's a really good lesson in patience, because um, I saw this little documentary. I think it was called Masterminds. It's like it was a half an hour cheesy kind of documentary on little crimes that will go on around the world, little capers and heists and stuff. And there was a story about this guy named David Walsh who had, done the story. Basically, it was a true story. So I watched it and went, wow, that's 3 acts. That's a great movie. That's super great. So I called John, my partner, and said, watch this little documentary, see if you can find it and watch it. And he did. And he goes, you're right. This is great. So we put together like a pitch, probably like a 20, 30-minute pitch. And we took it to our agents, and they were like, this is great. So we went around and we pitched it probably 20, 30 places. I mean, really just papered, because everybody really believed in it. But everybody said, great pitch. This could be a really good movie, but it's execution oriented. And if you guys want to, move this thing forward, you're going to have to write it. So we did, but we started writing it based on this. We did a very detailed outline. We started writing it, and about 6 months in, we were about halfway through because you had the outline and the first draft and going back and forth, and other things came up. We got busy on a gig and we had to leave. We were going to go shoot in Chicago for 6 months or something, and we had to put it down. I mean, we just had too much going on. We couldn't together concentrate on what we needed to do. So we waited. And then we never got back to it for probably, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. And we finally said, I think one day one of us just goes, "Hey, what about finishing Gold?" So we're like, "Okay, let's do it." We finished Gold and we wrote the script. And then again, it's this up and down roller coaster experience, right? We're really happy. We think it's fucking great. We send it to our agents and they don't respond. They literally just don't have any. Finally, we're trying to get them on the phone. Like weeks and weeks have gone by now. And everyone's just like, yeah, it's whatever. It's fine. And then a manager, one of our managers at industry, Michael Bottai, goes to work and he just papers it back to the right producers and it gets into a vote and it makes it on the Blacklist. And now it's hot, man. It's like everybody's into it. CAA's into it. We've got people making offers. And finally, Teddy Schwarzman, who we really thought was just a cool guy because we had met with him and we really liked how Teddy was seeing as a producer, was envisioning the movie. So we went with Teddy. And then it took, even though we had money to pay an actor, it still took, Irene, I think it still took 2 years to get an actor on board. It's so hard to get it. It's so because everybody that's good is booked, and if you're not booked, then there's a reason, So there's a really small market for those name guys that could really bring it. And we got Steve Gaghan to direct, who we loved from Traffic and Syriana. I mean, he had just really done a lot of great. We won some Academy Awards, and Steve is a super cool guy. And then we talked to Matthew, and Matthew had this incredible vision for the role. He felt a really strong connection to the material, said it was the best script he'd ever read. I think that's even on YouTube somewhere. And he said it was because it was so close to his father that reminded him of his dad. He wanted to play this role for his dad. He wanted to bring him to life.
Wow.
Now, it was a bit of a shock, I think, for everybody when he came out of the trailer one day and he had changed his teeth and his hair and he put on this weight. And it wasn't like sex symbol Matthew McConaughey anymore. But man, his performance is so good. It's so committed and so powerful. And, I don't think it got the credit that it deserved, but I'm sure most writers feel that way. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a really good ride. I haven't had anybody tell me, except my dad. Everybody else has been, that's a good movie.
Before we move on, so that's around 10 years ago. Is it uncommon to have to write a spec script now? Or are people writing more spec scripts now or less with the way that entertainment has changed?
Oh my God, Econ. It's like, it's changing every week. It seems like, we want specs. We don't want specs. We're looking for this. Or, we don't want procedurals. We want to do, all we want is procedurals. It's like what I've learned is it changes so much and so fast. Writing's fast. I mean, writing's slow rather. Business is fast. So you got to write what you like, and eventually what you're writing will become popular again. You can't go wrong.
So you just stick with what you're doing, ignore the trends, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, just ignore the trends, because by the time you finish writing, you're going to be the trends will be changed, and you'll be like,
it's like fashion.
Because we're waiting on bated breath here. We have to hear, what is this Michael Mann story?
Really a great story. Look, I love Michael Mann and respect him immensely. He's like one of the great, just like one of the great filmmakers. We were doing a project with him, and we were sort of collaborating on something. And the collaboration was great. It was very egalitarian. We'd meet for breakfast over in Brentwood, and we were working on the scripts. And going back to like what we were talking about last time was about risk taking and about what you have to do to roll the dice to get things made. And there was this place in the world that was very, very dangerous to go to. And he wanted me to go there with him and do a research trip. And reps and kind of investigate it. And they're like, we got to get all these shots. Okay, so we went and got the shots. And the next thing you know, he's like, okay, now I get another call from Asia. We got getting ready to leave in a week to go on this research trip to this very dangerous place. And there's a big movie star attached to it. And he wants to get it, researched so we can start writing it. And then I get a call from my agent saying, you know what, there's a thing from the U.S. consulate saying you Americans shouldn't travel there. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? We shouldn't. It's like there's a warning that they're killing and kidnapping Americans. You shouldn't go. So we confront Michael about that, and he's like, well, we'll get some security guards. As soon as we get down there, we'll hire some guys. I'm like, what do you mean to hire some guys? What guys are you going to hire? So there's disease, there's infection, there's malaria, there's like kidnapping, and there's assassination. Go on a research trip for a fucking movie.
I do admire that we'll see when we get there kind of attitude as well.
We were like, we got to get out of this because we don't want to die. It's not that important. And besides that, we were in an overall deal at Fox. So my agents go back to Mike, say, look, these guys, they did the shots, they're ready to go. They really want to do this with you, man. But maybe we're going to have to figure out a way at a different time to do the research because they're in this overall deal. And about literally 3 hours later, we get a call from the studio saying that Michael Mann has called the head of the studio and is trying to get you out of your overall deal so you can travel to this road to this research trip.
Tell him not to.
And here, like,
he's doing you a favor, right?
Talked about that, and I mean, he was just fucking mad, and he was going for it. And of course, that didn't work. But I just admire that so much, man. That he would try to. I think Dana Walden was like the head of the Fox at the time, and she was like, "Yourself, you're not taking my guys,." So anyway, so it was great times, good, really great. Just being around him and his energy and his creativity. And if you haven't seen a Michael Mann movie recently, go watch them. I think they all have something to offer, but some of them are just really like Heat, Collateral. I think those are just amazing movies.
Did you know Ikan was in Collateral as an extra?
Excuse me, that's background artist. And
background artist.
Way to go, man.
We talked about this at another time, but one of my first background jobs was standing next to Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx in the Korean nightclub scene. And it was long hours. We got paid a lot of money. Michael Mann was paying a higher amount for real Asians in this nightclub. He was not scared to blow through the money. We had long hours, and I was shooting on that for weeks, and it was great. But anyway, that was the movie. That was the movie.
That's fun to hang out with those guys. I mean, there's so much. Jamie Foxx. I worked with him on a show and his company, Foxhole, and I've always just thought Tom Cruise is probably, in my lifetime, our lifetimes, in our careers, probably the most important actor of our industry because he just
totally
generates so much money. And I think after COVID, even when people were still afraid to go back into the theaters, I think he single-handedly created a movement towards back into the theaters by doing that really cool announcement at the beginning of Top Gun. I'll just say this, maybe even like one of my hidden gems is like, if you haven't seen, Miami Vice is a wildly underrated. It's a fun, beautifully shot, music, romantic. I mean, I love the movie version of Miami Vice.
I think Colin Farrell got sober after that movie. I think that was his last movie before getting sober. As far as I know, I could be wrong about that, but I think I read that somewhere.
I wonder if had anything to do with it. So that's it. That's my Michael Mann story.
So Patrick, what if there's any projects that you feel like you can share?
Oh, thank you. Well, John and I have this project with Mark Gordon, Larry's brother, I believe, and Mark's got the Criminal Minds shows on, and he's really, and there's a great producer over there with Mark, Bibby Dunn. She's amazing, and so they brought us a series of books, and it's a procedural, and it's based on a young game warden set in the wilds of Maine. And it's just like this incredibly cool setting with amazingly different kinds of bad guys and criminals. And it's based on a series of books. And these books are they're rich and they're powerful. They're written by Paul Dworin. And it's really it's hard to find a fresh take at the procedural, a fresh run at the character, a fresh run at the environment, different kinds of crimes, the way guys unravel things. It's just hard. I mean, you can get like the standard kind of good. There's a lot of good stuff out there, but trying to find something really unique is hard. And when Mark's company brought us this, we just thought this is so great and so fresh, and it just feels like it's like people who love crime, which is almost everybody, will love the freshness of this. It's got kind of a true detective vibe to it, but it's also a young guy just starting out. It's also got 16 books attached to it, so this is an ongoing thing. And I just love everybody involved. And Paul, the guy who wrote the books, is great. And Lionsgate is the studio, and they're amazing, and they're behind it, and they love it. And yeah, we're going to go pitching that pretty soon, and I'm pretty excited.
I love it.
That's amazing. That sounds awesome.
Also, one more coincidental thing that I just wanted to mention on the podcast. So Ekan and I, as you may know, met at an acting class at Leslie Kahn, which is an acting school here in Hollywood. And then I found out 2 weeks ago that you and Leslie Kahn had worked together on an episode of Quantum Leap, which is
Oh my
quite
God! I thought you said we did something else.
No.
Yeah. Surprise! She's actually on the podcast with us right now.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
So that was another coincidence. So like, it's funny that all of our paths had crossed before we ever knew each other. Like, I met you in I crossed paths with you in 2011. That was the Quantum Leap was in the late 80s. Like, it's funny that like here we all are now, and we all kind of came across each other in some way, in some weird connected way.
Which speaks to something of our industry, which is that it's small. There's not a lot of people here doing this. It's hard. We love it. It's going through a lot of growing pains and changes and difficult shit, but it's still what we do and we love. And regardless of where technology is taking us, we have to be able to still tell the human story, because the AIs are going to be able to tell stories, but they're not going to be telling human stories. They're going to be telling AI stories, because AI isn't something else. It is absolutely like us. This is the first time in human history that we've had to share the planet with an intelligent being that's equal to or greater than ourselves. And that's artificial intelligence. It's going to do a lot of different things, good things, bad things, who knows. You have to adapt to what's new and tell a new story in a way that no one's ever done it, and try to find our relevance again,
Yeah. I think that's a great place to pin it. Great place to end it. Patrick, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, man. I just want to share my hidden gem.
Oh yeah. Let's do hidden gems.
Oh man, yeah. We didn't want to put it on you, but yeah, go for it.
No, just real quickly. Two things. One is, I had a back problem. I was supposed to get surgery. I couldn't get surgery for like 6 weeks. I started researching infrared saunas, and I got one, and I canceled my surgery because in 6 weeks, all the pain had gone away.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if that's the same. I'm not pitching this as don't go buy an infrared sauna and expect it to cure all your problems. But the extra growing of T cells and the generation of white cells, the reduction of inflammation, the blood flow that infrared, not the traditional saunas, can create, changed my life. And I'm so grateful for that. And, I just bought one for they're expensive. It's a couple $1,000, put it in my house. And I just do it, but I do it religiously. I do it like it's part of my routine in the morning. It's also part of my routine at night. But in 6 weeks, I'd gone from thinking that I'm going to have to be on serious medication and be one of those guys that's just going to like shuffle around and not be able to lift up my grandkids for the rest of my life. That I was just trying to adapt to the idea that I'm just going to be a guy that lives in chronic pain. The thing that saved my life was an infrared sauna, and I can't explain it. I just can't go beyond whatever you look up on the internet, the Google machine about it. It's going to give you the information that I just kind of spewed off. But it might work for you, it might not. It worked for me, and it certainly couldn't hurt, anybody that. So that's my sort of thing. And then the last thing, a piece of music. Everybody knows this album. Miles Davis is Kind of Blue.
Love that album.
This is it's obviously vinyl. Now, the fourth song, first song on the second side. That's where I think it's called Flamenco Sketches, and in there are four solos. Four soloists, five solos. The first is Miles Davis. The second is Coltrane, and the third is John Cannonball Adderley. In John Cannonball Adderley is the greatest, to me, most beautiful, sensuous, gorgeous saxophone solo ever played.
Wow.
And if you listen for it, because you can feel it's all improvised. And so he only did it one time in the history of the planet. Even if he tried to, I don't think he could do it again. Nobody writes down the notes of improvised jazz generally. So he's playing. It feels like it's in chaos. It feels like all of our lives. It's a little disturbing. It's a little chaotic. It's beautiful, but it's like there's no structure to it. It's just this beautiful improvised flow. And out of all this non-structure comes this riff that's beautifully put together and organized in a way that just makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. And then it goes away again, just kind of like a butterfly drifting off. And it's my favorite piece of music on the entire planet. That solo on that song on that album from 1959, Miles Davis's Kind of Blue.
Amazing.
That's it.
Wow.
I love that. That's a great hidden gem. And
I don't think we can compare to yours, but we'll at least throw a couple out while we're here.
Yeah.
no,
ahead,
my hidden gem was actually, you told me about it. It was it's Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, which Patrick actually recommended to me, which is not super hidden.
I've been listening to it too.
Yeah, actually the audiobook is great because Rick Rubin narrates it. But for anybody who's creative, it just or wants to be creative, it just describes creativity in a way I've never heard before. And Patrick was the person who actually turned me onto it, and it is incredible. I'd recommend it to anybody to kind of. It just gives us such a great description of creativity and
the part of creativity that's so hard to describe. He manages to do that, and what it makes you do is it makes you feel very honored and proud and grateful to be a part of the creative world in a way that it just connects you to like the whole process with everybody, not just. You suddenly don't feel so alone when you listen to this book for some reason. It's really amazing.
We were joking around about starting a cooking show.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I can't top your guys' creative hidden gems here, but I'm not sure if you heard of durian. Do you know the fruit durian?
No.
Okay, I'm so glad to bring this up.
What is this? I'm a fruit nut. I mean,
I know it's a tropical fruit, and this is so Asian. So I'm so glad to bring it up here.
Yeah.
My mom just started raving about it. It's a tropical fruit. The reason why people know it is the smell is so pungent that a lot of Americans can't stand it. Why one of them? The smell is so strong, it'll blow your mind.
What is it? Is it like farts, or what does it smell like? Is it orange, kind of spiky?
Kind of looks like a pineapple, but a little spiky on the outside. Anyway, it is incredibly healthy, tons of magnesium in it, and it's actually a lot of health and nutrients in it.
It doesn't taste like it smells, though. The smell sounds awful. I'm just reading about it here.
The smell is so strong, I don't even know what it really tastes like. So I have to, and I'm going to give it a second try because my mom told me to eat it, and she's going to get some more. I literally have to plug my nose to eat it, but it is very healthy for you. Anyway, if you're intrigued, go get some durian, and that's my hidden gem.
I'm going to try it, man.
I told you, Rian. I told you we're going to start a cooking show.
This sounds like a dare.
Exactly. I dare you guys. Patrick Massett, thank you so much for your time, and this has been a real treat. Thank you.
Well, it's really been an honor and a pleasure to be with you guys. You guys are the fucking coolest, and I really had a great time. And thank you for letting me be a part of it. And I just hope that this show goes on forever, and you guys just get all your dreams come true, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We're so grateful. Thank you, man. I've loved this chat.
Love you guys.